Anybody. Sean Capri, and welcome to We the GamerCast that publishes on podcast and at youtube.com/UmeCapri every single Monday. Patrons get it first. Thank you for subscribing, hitting the like button, telling your mom, telling your dad, telling your friend, telling your dad's dad if you're lucky enough to still have your dad's dad still around. Many of you do. Many of you are not quite as ancient as I am. Goodness gracious, how did we start off on a note like that? You guys, I'm grateful that you're here. It's great that you're here. That's why there's so much gratefulness and gratitude and greatness. It's great. Grouchy Surge would be very happy. I'm so glad you're here. I'm getting a little winded, so if you're new, here's the deal. Every week, I have sweet hangs with a stranger from the internet. We talk about life and a little bit of video games, and if you want to be on the show, just tweet at me at Sean Capri, Sean like Connery, Capri like the pants. I have news, you guys. There's a new member of the family. It's enormous. It barely fit in through the door. We were expecting the stork to drop it off back before Christmas, but it just arrived. We got a call from our local GameStop. Yes, for those of you who have been following along for a little while, you know exactly what I'm talking about. A PlayStation 5 has arrived in the Capri household. We are now complete. We have a Switch OLED. We have the Series S, the Series X, the PS5, all the too many things, man. And the new, did I talk about this last week? I got a new graphics card. Holy crap. And a cute little mini iPad. It's so cute. It's got a little pencil. It kind of magnetized to the side and all the things. I'm in a good mood. I hope you guys are in a good mood as well. You're in for a treat today. My backlog speaking of Grouchy Surge, my backlog has, I don't know, I think like everybody's, like it's just escalated. Like this is, what the heck has happened, dude? And for whatever reason, as I was picking up the PS5, I'm like, somehow picking it up, I'm like, because it's like checking off a box. I think that's what it was. It's checking off a box. It's been there for a long time, lingering. Many of you have like thought like, I thought you had your PS5, right? Weren't you talking about that like back in December? It's like, yeah, I did before Christmas. I think it was actually December 14th. Not that I was keeping specific track, but December 14th was when I traded in I should say, Chelsea and I, we both have a few PS4s that were laying around. I still have a PS4 Pro, the Spidey one. I ain't selling that one to nobody, but we did trade in our, I actually think it was a Slim, if I remember. Yeah, it was, no, it was a day one. It was, well, not technically day one, version one, V1, because it came with the Nathan Drake collection. Anyways, not important to the story. Traded it in. They gave me a trade-in value and then kind of like put me on almost like a pre-order list, which is weird because the damn thing's been out for like a year and a half. Is that weird? Like, does that not seem right? Like, I was thinking about that the other day. I'm like, that can't be correct. And I think it was Tim from Nintendo Dads. I think it was Tim or Piper or, man, I'm sorry, guys. Somebody had tweeted me as I was taking this thing home. They're like, you can't do anything until you unbox that sucker in the back of the truck. And I'm like, when the heck did they're referencing, when I got a Series X from Xbox Canada, we were doing our coverage for that for the Xbox Drive. Because I record the Xbox Drive, or I used to, in a car, I thought, why wouldn't I unbox the Series X in a car? So Chelsea drove me around a parking lot and I unboxed the thing in the back of the truck and I almost dropped it. So that's what the reference comes to. And I'm like, but this is all about time. And this tweet made me think like, well, that was October, wasn't it? Wasn't that like late October? This was last year's a year and a half. Holy crap, dude. What the heck? I hope you guys are doing great, even though the years are passing by like months are passing by like days like hours. You get the drill. But goodness gracious. Part of the reason I got on this trail is because I was talking about a backlog. And I'm like, okay, great. Now I can get to all these PlayStation games that I haven't really gotten to. I'm like, holy crap. There's like, just like added so many games to my actual list. You know, not only the games that I've had in the past. I actually have a copy of Miles Morales. I picked up. It was on sale over Christmas time. Got all those next gen versions of Uncharted. I continue to love the Uncharted games. Horizon, I've been talking to you guys. I've been playing that one. Thanks to our friends at PlayStation Canada. And now I'm going to have like this really interesting shift. I haven't put a whole heck of a lot of time into the game. I want to talk about that in a second, but I'm going to have like this shift from playing the first however many hours on a PS4 Pro and then finishing the game on a PS5. And then who knows about like going back and forth. What I would really like to do is now just like put my PS4 Pro here by the computer so that I could stream from it and everything. But like, dude, this is where I was going to go with this. And then I'll get on with the show. I promise you guys. Setting this thing up, it's just not as... I'm sorry, I know people think certain things about me with Xbox and whatever, but guess what? PlayStation sends me free shit too. You know what I mean? So I'm just gonna be... I feel like I've earned like the space. I can be open and honest in what I say. I don't think it's fanboyish at all. But if you come into the next generation, if you come to a PS5 or a Series X or Series S, and you have like a profile or you have a history from the previous version, Xbox is like, it's not even close. Xbox is way, way better. What a nightmare getting this PS5 set up and then like having all my saves like maybe come over. What an absolute nightmare, man. So I wanted to spend more time playing games, but I got to sort all these other things out and like what versions of games and where's my cloud saves. And so I don't know. My point about earlier about wanting to have a PS4 Pro over here and just kind of going back and forth, I don't know if that's going to be worth it, you know? And I also don't want to like pull my back moving this PS5 back and forth. That really should be the solution. I should just have like cables ready and waiting. But I actually, like, no joke, again, objective truth here, guys. I don't think that the little IKEA shelf that I've got here has space for the PS5 to squeeze into if I were to move it over here to stream from. I just don't think that that's possible. And I'm wondering, why isn't anybody talking about this? It's all we heard about with like the size of Xboxes and even PS3s in the past. This isn't even a partisanship kind of thing. Is that the word? Partisan? Back when the PS3 was a thing, that thing was enormous, and we talked about that a lot. I don't like it. It's just huge. With all that said, my backlog just got bigger. I'm continuing on with Horizon, but guess what? Because these systems are in such short supply, whoever sells them can, like, they call the shots, man. They're not just going to sell you the system. It's like you have to buy another controller and a game. In my case, I had to buy another game, and like it's just that's the situation. If you want one, you're gonna spend way more than just the system price. It's like, remember back in the day, parents would say like, "Doesn't it come with a game?" It's like, well, yeah, it does. If you spend another like $200 or $300, good God. But that's where the complaining ends, because I was kind of happy to be forced to actually have to buy another game with this, because I had to buy twist my rubber arm, Gran Turismo 7. I am stoked, man. I cannot wait to jump into this thing. So the backlog is just getting bigger. I'm not making a whole heck of a lot of progress on this stuff. Horizon's on the go. I got a code for Chorus on Xbox, and I can't wait to jump into that one. Pokemon's still going. Cyberpunk. I picked up Triangle Strategy for some stupid reason today. It's not a stupid reason. That game looks great. But it's stupid because I just don't know when I'm going to get around to playing these games, other than to say Gaming for Guru. For people listening on the free feed, Gaming for Guru is now done. I'm sure it went great. For patrons, we're right smack dab in the middle of it. I was just checking, and we're a little over $1,200. Saturday night at 7:54 p.m. I've got like 3 minutes before I've got to switch gears and chat with Andros, who will be on the show next week. Hopefully that all goes well, because I just might have jinxed it. But before we get into all of that, and at a certain point, I might have an update on Gaming for Guru. I'll talk more, definitely in more detail next week, because then it will actually be all done. What do I want to say? Oh, Patreon. Patreon.com/YumiKapri if you guys like this show. If you like the Xbox Drive, the Nintendo Drive, the PlayStation Drive, the RPG Cave. And if you want exclusive content, like the Pants Patreon podcast for Patrons podcast, or if you want to get a little sneak peek on like what the heck we're doing next, Ryan Turford and we just recorded an episode exclusive to patrons $3 and up. We just recorded an episode of the Yumi Capri podcast where we got a little preview of what you guys can expect. So if that all tickles your fancy, patreon.com/YumiCapri, just like everybody, more than 70 Amazing, damn, that hasn't come back in a little while, Amazing patrons over at patreon.com/YumiCapri. And I want to say a special thank you to our premium producers, Dallas Ford, Lee Navarro, the fearless leader of the Phoenix Overdrive Extra Life team, and the most just incredible person supplying the Nintendo Switch as a prize for Gaming for Guru. Please join our team at extra-life.org, and we're going to be raising money for those kids in November. It's never too early. I'm already signed up. Join us. Johnathan Brown, another premium producer. He's the man behind the music on the Xbox Drive and the Nintendo Drive. You can download his latest album, In My Element, on Spotify and Apple Music. Our platinum producers, the wonderful Robbie Bobby Miller and Trucker Sloth. Our gold members, Argo, Brendan Myers, Dallas Robbins, Dano, Emily O'Kelly, Foolish Fuji, Joel Brooks, Jose Jimenez, Mac Time, Marcus O'Neill, Mr. and Mrs. Nasty Boots, RJ Kern, the skinniest of Matts, Tony Baker, and Xavier Reyes. If you guys want to be one of those or many of the others at patreon.com/YumiCapri, you can go over there, select the tier that is right for you. I cannot wait for you guys to listen to this episode. This is wholesome. This is 2 weeks in a row. We got ladies from around the world, man. Hoppy Doxie is here. You might remember me talking to Delroy a couple of months ago. Hoppy Doxie is Delroy's spouse. So I think you guys are really going to enjoy this. We had a little bit of a conversation last week with Tammy about moving around the world, getting a little culture shock in there. More of that. So if you like that, stick around. I think this is going to be a good one. And here she is, the Hoppy Doxie. How are you?
I'm good.
Thanks for doing this.
Yeah.
I'm curious how it came up actually. Like, did he talk you into it, or did you listen? Did you listen to his episode? Like, how did that happen?
No, he won't let me listen to his episode.
Oh, come on! No, you can. I'll send you a link. I'll send you a.
Definitely.
Yeah, you can do it. You can do it in private because. Yeah, no, he talked all about you, so you probably you probably want to see. That's why I like kind of doing these sometimes. And if it's okay, I'm just gonna like this is basically it. Like
That works.
This is just a conversational kind of thing. I rarely get the chance to like get the other side of the story actually, because you guys do so much obviously as a pair, and you've made a tremendous move in your life. I'm like, huh. This is one side of the story, which I don't think he was out of turn with anything, but I always think it could be interesting to get the other side. But yeah, before we even get into that, yeah, I'm curious how this came up, because he kind of messaged me. He's like, "Should have Brie on? I think that would be great." I'm like, "I'm good for whatever." So yeah, what was your side of it?
I think we were listening to Marcus's episode, and he was talking about, I think, some of like Miles's health struggles. And I've had a lot of stuff in my like life with, I'm a type 1 diabetic, and I've had all kinds of health stuff. And so I think he was like, oh, well, that's something to talk about. And then he was like, you should go on, and not necessarily like about the health stuff by any means, but just, I think that's just kind of what got into his head was like, oh, well, maybe you guys would want to talk to him. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this is the best part about it, is like anybody can come on. Like that's kind of when I first started doing this, I was like kind of pretty rigid in like the rules that I was going to do and like who's going to come on and blah, blah, blah. And as like time has come on, it's like, honestly, I just feel like talking to kind of anybody is good for the show. Like, and it's good for me. And I think you guys are in a particularly like interesting kind of situation now too. And I'm like, one of the first things that comes to mind too, just with everything that's going on, like, how are you doing, and how is Europe right now? I know you can't really speak on behalf of like the entire continent, but like, how are you doing with given everything else? You guys are in Germany. Like, does the Ukraine stuff like impact you guys at all? Like, is it close, like kind of hitting close to home? Like, how are you?
We're fine.
Yeah.
I mean, and of course, like it goes without saying, but nothing that we will experience could even touch on what everyone in Ukraine and in those bordering countries with refugees, and even just the fear of actually having the war like travel into their countries. Like nothing we will ever go through, thank God, will touch what anyone else is going through right now. And just keeping that in perspective is like, yesterday we got word, and it's been reversed now, but like Amazon wasn't going to be shipping to the APO addresses. It's like, okay, well that's an impact to us, but they've changed it. And, but even then it's like, that's such a tiny little thing. Or our gas prices have skyrocketed because Germany has shut down the pipeline from Russia. That's how Germany was getting all of their fuel. And so our gas prices have gone up. It's something like, I think I looked yesterday, it's almost $8 a gallon right now in Europe. And it went up. Yeah. And Europe is really expensive anyway, but it went up like 80 cents per gallon just in the last couple of days. So, and it's all by liters. So I had to figure it out, but I
I'm Canadian, so we're good. Like,
okay. Like 20 cents per liter.
Got it. Okay.
And nice. So that was kind of like the first impact, but but otherwise, I know. So we're in like the Frankfurt area, so not. It's a totally different world than like Berlin, where there's a lot of protesting going on. I'm from Portland, and I always think of
Yes.
Berlin as like the Portland of Germany. And so we're
I've
not.
never heard that before. That's awesome.
It makes sense to me, but yeah.
Sure.
So they like to express and protest and express their right to do so, and that's great. And so we don't have any of those protests going on here right now that I've seen. Of course, it's still super new. And then the things that we do in kind of an ancillary fashion support the Army that's here, the U.S. Army, and that's what we're here to do, is to help support them. And so I think the biggest role that we're going to have right now is just figuring out how we can be supportive of our family members or our community members that have active duty spouses, or the people that we work with that are active duty, because even if we don't go to war, or if we don't get involved in a military aspect of it, it's still very, very triggering for all of the community members right now. Just
no kidding.
That they might, or even just flashbacks from last times that people have had to deploy. And so
no kidding.
It's just kind of a trickle effect.
When you say we, it's interesting because you're living in Germany, but you are American. Like you're kind of like playing almost like a dual role there in terms of like, maybe that's kind of what you're talking about. Like you're living with your identity there and your nationality and heritage, but you're living in a country that has a loaded history with conflict, really. Yeah. So yeah, when you say like we, it's like, well, our neighbors, or we as in America, like what's America going to do in this situation? So like, that's kind of why I wanted to ask you about it, because I just feel like it's quite loaded. I'm not sure if I don't want to project anything onto you, but I was just curious, like how that kind of manifests and what you start to think about as the days go on. And yeah, it's just kind of wild times right now, as if we needed anything else in the world right now.
Seriously.
Just throw this on top of it. Sure. Awesome.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy, but we'll just have to wait and see what happens. I think at this point, the biggest impact to us is not any different than if we were living in America. We're super removed from it right now.
Yeah.
But as things transpire, we'll just have to see what happens.
Like they don't have you on any sort of like list, or like, okay, at a certain point, we got to get you out of there. Like at what point do they fly a plane over your place and you get to like skyhook onto this thing and just get the hell out of there? Like,
that would be awesome.
Right? If we're gonna have to evacuate, we want to do it like James Bond or something. Yeah.
I know that they evacuated the dependents in Ukraine a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
And then I think that if there was any Americans in Belarus, they were looking at evacuating the dependents as well. As far as us here in Germany, it hasn't even been discussed as a possibility, because I mean, at this point we have no idea if it's what's going to happen, if anything is going to move or not. But I mean, I do not feel any threat to my safety or security here. So it really isn't much different than if we were back in the States at this point.
Well, that's good. I mean, and you guys have been there for a couple of years now, right? Like you're pretty well settled in. Like you feel like this is kind of like where you live, and you've got kind of your routines and everything down. Like how much longer are you guys going to be in Germany for?
At this point, we have 3 more years. So we were originally scheduled for 3 years, and we got an extension because we absolutely love it here. And so that gives us a 5-year total. And then there's a possibility later on that we might be able to extend out to, say, 7 years. But at this point, we've got 3 more years. Yeah, we absolutely love it here. The weather, the climate is not really any different than the Seattle, Portland area, which is where both of us are from. And so that wasn't ever a hard adjustment. We have that there's like a saying in Germany that there's no bad weather, only bad gear. And we've definitely adapted that policy. So we're out and about hiking, rain or shine.
I love it. It's so on point. It's so good.
Yep, exactly. It's just, you just got to deal with it. And so we try not to let the weather stop us, and that the people here are great. Everyone's super friendly. It's so funny because you have all of those stereotypes about Germans being unfriendly or blunt, and they are very blunt, and they're very much in your business. But it's done from a point of, it's not even that they care. It's just they are, and it's of course speaking very generally, but in my experience, that it's not so much that they're nosy or in your business. They just really like the rules and them to be followed, and they're
Detailed.
yeah, exactly. And so one of the common things is you'll see people comment like if they don't think a baby is dressed for the weather appropriately, and they're not saying, oh, you're a bad parent or you're not doing something right. It's more like, did you know you could maybe put another layer on them or things like that. So when we first,
wouldn't that be nice if that was just like the assumption when somebody comes to you with maybe like actually objectively good advice, that the assumption is just like they're just trying to help, trying to help. They don't think that you're an idiot.
Right.
That would be kind of nice. I like that.
Yeah.
There might be something to this.
When we first moved here, in the States, it's super common to leave your porch light on 24/7, right? Between like crime or just whatever.
Oh yeah, make sure people think you're home.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's what we did. We just left the porch light on, and about a week or two, a woman came and knocked on the door, did not speak a lick of English, and we had been here for just a couple weeks. I knew like light, which is spelled differently but said the same in German, and then she said the word for sleep, and we just could not figure out what we were talking about, but I finally realized that she was talking about turning the light off while we're sleeping because it shines into other people's houses, and they're very environmentally conscious here. And she didn't mean anything bad by it. She just wanted to let me know that you should turn your light off when you go to bed. And it was just one of those things where as an American, I'm like, how dare she? If I want to leave my light on, I'll leave my light on. And it's been a total mental shift now to just kind of, it's not even humbling yourself. It's just taking your guards down and assuming the best intent.
Definitely. Do you know if she knew when she knocked on the door, if you guys were not from around here, like, or was it just she saw the light on and she figured I
think she just saw the light on because there was as soon as I opened the door and I'm not speaking German, I'm sure
that's pretty obvious.
Figure it out, but she was super patient with me, which was really sweet. She didn't, get frustrated and walk off. She just did her best she kept saying verstehen, which is, do you understand? And I'm like, kind of.
Yeah. And then you start to think about like how we speak to people like in English and they don't speak English, and you like the things that we kind of do, like sometimes people will get loud and slow, and it's like, that's not not helpful. Like, it's not like that makes it more understandable, but
exactly,
because you kind of get you kind of get like that flipped experience, which I think is fascinating. And the thing too is, which is interesting, is just last week, I was talking to Tammy Ryan, who's somebody from the UK who moved to Ireland, and was talking all about kind of like the culture shift of that, which I think might be a little bit more subtle for anybody outside of that area. And maybe if you're not from around there, you might go like, what culture shift? But it's like, it was significant. It was kind of interesting to chat with her about that. So actually now, like back to back, I've got kind of conversations with people who are taking like fish out of water kind of thing. So how are you dealing just with like the culture shock, and even just the, like, for you, it's a little bit more pronounced, I would say too, because of the language barrier. Are you training up? Do you have like an app or something to help you like learn a word of the week or something? I'm not sure how it go. I'd be totally lost forever. I'd be like, I guess this is gonna be a difficult 5 years.
Yeah, it's so a lot of our interactions are still with Americans. So that's kind of like a little bit insular. We don't live on like an army base or anything like that. So our neighbors are Germans. They're actually Italian. And so they speak Italian and German and English.
Oh, that's great.
And that's really helpful. But so we've tried to integrate as much as possible. I can tell you just about every word for food in German. Nice. and road signs, like those are my experiences. Yeah. And you kind of have to learn. And then of course, repetition helps. And then Duolingo has been really great. And so just, it's not that difficult because it's a Western culture. It's not like we moved to Japan where it's a very Eastern culture and it's just totally different. It's not that different from the US as far as the stores carry very similar food, and we have Western medicine here. We drive on the same side of the road as in the US, just drive a lot faster, which is amazing.
Is it really?
It's so much fun.
Tell me about driving then. Like, what do you mean you drive a lot? Is there just no, like, everybody knows like the autobahn, but that's like pretty specific. That's like one road.
That's what you think growing up in the US. The autobahn is just the highway. Autobahn means highway. Anywhere. Oh,
I thought it was like one particular stretch of highway. Like, I thought it's just all highway? Yep. Is drive whatever you want?
It depends, but for the most part. So there's certain areas, if they're a little bit more populated, they might have a posted speed, which is generally like 120 or 130 kilometers.
Yeah,
So
that's
like
pretty
60 to
fast.
80 miles per hour. But otherwise, if there's no speed limit, like there's this, it's like a bumper sticker. It's a circle
Yeah.
with a slash through it, and that just means end of speed. And it's like that plus the autobahn sign equals smiley face, because then everyone's like, yes, you can go as fast as you want. So yeah, when we first got here, the person that picked us up from the airport was driving, and I said, oh, wait, are we on the autobahn? He said, yeah. And I'm thinking like, we live so close to this magical autobahn, and it's just the highway. It's just the highway. They don't
I
have
feel so
tolls
stupid.
here,
I think
so-
I had that explained to me at one point before, and as soon as you said, I'm like, oh, I'm an idiot. Yep, that's totally what that word means.
But that's what everyone thinks in the US.
I know.
That's what you're just told. And so yeah, you can just kind of drive as fast as you want, and then everyone like actually follows the stay in the left lane to pass, but the right lane if not.
Yeah.
And Germany has a lot of rules and regulations around driving, and so you can actually get in trouble if you're driving in the left lane at a slower speed than the person in the right, which technically is also a law in the US, but no one ever follows it. Everyone thinks it's their right to just drive in the left lane. And that doesn't happen here, especially because you have people going 200 kilometers per hour, and you spend half of the time driving looking in your rear view mirror, just making sure no one's not coming up in a blink of an eye. And it's just a different driving experience. We went back to the States in November and drove like from Portland to Seattle on I-5, and it was just torture because no one follows the rules. No one knows how to zipper merge. You know, it's just super efficient.
Man, the zipper merge. Come on, you guys. Like, yes, like this is the takeaway from today's conversation. People should just like, if you don't know what it is, look it up and tell a neighbor. Goodness gracious.
Yes,
it's funny that you kind of talk about like the differences between like Germany and then the US. Like when I go to the US, like when I go to like LA, or sometimes I've driven around in like even in Florida and some of the busier areas, and I go like, there are so many lanes of traffic here and they're all packed up. Like it's kind of intense because we just have space out here. Like there's like one city and then hundreds of kilometers, and then there's another city like somewhere else. Like we're so spread out. It's just like farmland and grass and maybe mountains in between. Like that's it. We're not stacked on top of each other, so you don't have like these busy roads. So yeah, I think for me going to Germany to experience this would be something else too. Which I gotta get over there. Well, how much was it like you just wanted to, like, was it already kind of on, I don't know if it's necessarily like a bucket list of just like to go there? Because it seemed like from when I talked to your husband, like it seemed like the opportunity came up and you just were pretty much on board with it.
It was super random. He wanted to move, and I was like, okay, like we were looking at Japan because he was born in Japan. His mom's Japanese, and we visited and absolutely loved Japan. So that sounded like a good idea, and it just wasn't happening. It just, the opportunities weren't where they needed to be. And he said, well, what about Italy? And I'm like, okay, pasta. Yeah, I could do Italy. But never really thought about it. I had visited before. And then this one in Germany came up, and it was the last place on my list I would have ever thought about wanting to go. We have a friend that we had worked with, because Josh and I used to work together, and she had gone to Germany. And I was like, why would you want to go to Germany? You can go to Italy, you can go to France, you can go to all these places that we romanticize in movies and things like that.
For sure.
Why would you want to go to Germany? It is gorgeous here, and I don't know that we really would have wound up here on vacation otherwise. And now, like, every time I talk to people, you have to come. It's so pretty, and there's so much to do. There's a lot of castles.
That's amazing.
But yeah, it was just we got the email that said that they were going to be extending the job offer to him. I'm like, okay, I guess we're going to Germany. Like, why not at this point? We don't have kids. We wanted to explore. We were both miserable in the jobs that we were working, and it really was the best
do it
for us. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, that would definitely, and I'm so glad. I feel like more and more people are doing this now, where they're like having a pretty serious look at their lives and going like, this isn't awesome. So like, let's actually change it. Like, it's so empowering. you know, that there's actually a choice and that you can do something different. You can change your situation, and like maybe the grass really is greener on the other side. Like I'm hearing a lot of that these days, and I'm really encouraged by that. So that's great. But like, you know, I think about moving, and there are some things are real, some things are completely made up, like in my mind. Like, did you have anything like tying you down in terms of like, what do your parents say? Like, do you have friends? You have a life that you're essentially kind of detaching yourself from. Like, so it's not quite as like, let's just hop on a flight, like, peace out, see you guys later. There's real things that you kind of like leave behind.
Yeah, it was most difficult to tell my mom, because we're very close, and I had, even just moving from Portland to Seattle, when Josh and I got serious, that was a lot for her. And so having to tell her was really difficult. Everyone else was super excited. My dad is a military brat. He was in the Army, but kind of enlisted, foreign done, but he like lived in Germany for a very short time that he doesn't remember, and spent a lot of time. He went to high school in Korea, things like that, because my grandfather was in the Army. And then Josh's dad is a retired Navy officer. So he's been all around the world, and that's how he met Josh's mom, was when he was stationed in Japan. So Josh's mom moved from Japan to the US. So everyone around us is used to that military life, that travel, kind of nomadic, and understood the value of experiencing different cultures in our lifetime. And at that point, we had already decided we weren't going to be having kids. So there really wasn't anything tying us down to like this relationship with grandparents that we had to be concerned with from our own children, because we weren't doing that. And then family and friends elsewhere were just supportive. And I think it's we're like the friends that live in Europe, right? We now fill this role for other people.
Yeah, totally.
We get to post all of our travel pictures, so everyone gets to live vicariously through us. And so it's become, to us, it's just normal now. It's just kind of our day to day. We still go to the grocery store. We still go to work every day. We just went to Malta last weekend, or, you know, in a couple weeks we're going to Denmark, or, you know, things like that.
No big deal. Yeah, just Luxembourg, and we did Athens and blah, blah, blah. It was just the weekend.
Malta was our 20th country since we moved 2 years ago.
Are you stamping passports every time? Like, do you have like that kind of collection going? Yeah.
No, we collect art everywhere we go. We try and buy just something from like a local street vendor, and then we get an ornament so that our Christmas tree is super fun every year, to kind of keep a collection of everything. But a lot of times we're just driving, so there's nowhere to go through customs and then open borders in Europe.
Sure.
So there's no customs checks. And then because of the way that we're here with our visa, we don't get, I don't know, like the visa thing works differently. And that's really the point of the passport stamp, is to certify your visa that you're entering in on a certain day. You have 90 days to leave, and that doesn't apply for circumstance, because we're here for work. So we don't get that, unfortunately, which would be really neat. But actually, when we first moved here, when we first came in, we didn't have it's a card, it's a card that serves as our visa, kind of like a green card or a work visa. And we didn't have that yet, because Josh hadn't started his job yet. And so we had the paperwork that gave us the rights to move to Germany, but we didn't have what the customs officer wanted. And he just looked at us, and straight out of a Seinfeld episode, he says, "Okay, fine, but no stamp for you."
No way. Yes. Keep the. Oh, I don't even want to say it.
I know, that's too close. Like a Seinfeld episode.
We'll just say the Seinfeld episode. Like, okay, that might be a little too close.
I told the story before. I've learned which words to use. Yeah,
we'll pull back. Yep.
It was really funny. So, we don't even have a stamp from when we first moved here.
Well, you know, I'm kind of all over the place here, but I'm really fascinated with it. There's a couple things I want to touch on. Well, first I'm gonna talk, like, when you first landed, like when you first kind of talked about all the options that you were thinking about moving to, like there's Japan, there's Italy, there's all these places that are like, you know, kind of higher up on the list. After you landed in Germany, like when was the point where you went, oh snap, like this place is amazing? Like, was it pretty immediate that you went, thank goodness we moved here, and you kind of just changed your maybe preconceived notions of what the country was like?
Yeah, I think so. Germany's really flat compared
Mm-hmm.
to even like Seattle, where you've got a lot of
Definitely
trees
the
and
mountains in
evergreens
the
and everything.
background for sure.
Yeah, exactly. So that is different, and it's just magnificently beautiful. Everything is green. There's farmlands everywhere. The cities and the villages are very condensed, kind of like what you were talking about. Not
Mm-hmm.
quite that, much of a span in between them.
Oh man,
But
we're there's not many of us. We got a lot of space.
I know Germany's like the size of Montana, so not a whole lot of room in between
Is
areas.
that it?
Yeah, it takes us about 6 hours to drive from where we are to like the other, like to Berlin would be about
Oh
6 hours.
wow, I
So
had no.
it's not very big.
My silly YouTube algorithm has it like for whatever reason it's all like maps are a lie, and I'm like, what do you, I still don't
Yeah,
understand. Like I get what they're trying to
yeah,
say, like you're looking at a 2D thing, but it's a sphere. Like I didn't realize like holy crap, that is quite a bit
it's
smaller. But you
small.
have to like there's tons of countries crammed up into Europe. So oh, that's
Right,
interesting. Okay.
right. So we're where we are right outside of Frankfurt. It's like a 2 hour drive to Luxembourg, a 5 hour drive to Paris, a
Wow.
6 hour drive to Austria, a 5 hour drive to Switzerland. It does not take very far to get. It's almost like living on the east coast of the U.S.,
Oh
where
yeah.
everything's
Yep.
just super close
That
together.
makes sense. Yeah.
Uh, but it's just gorgeous. It's green. There's farmlands everywhere, and then you have these little patches of towns. They're villages more or less, and everything's got kind of those little red rooftops. And it's so
That's the best.
idyllic, picturesque. Everything's like those half timber houses, like you see in Beauty and the Beast and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's everything's old, and where we live, the
Yeah.
area that we're in, it was not hit by the war because it had such a strong army presence even back then, that there's a lot of really old historic buildings, and so you just have this kind of history that's captured. And so
Mm-hmm.
when we got here, it felt like magic. It felt like it was out of a book. I had a lot of anxiety when we first moved, and I generally don't, I'm not an anxious person. I don't have like any sort of anxiety overall, but I just became very overwhelmed by not being able to speak the language.
Yeah.
And I like to know the situation before I'm going into it. I like to know the answers before
Me
I'm
too.
asking them. And
Yep.
so just having that, so I had to like put a sign on the door that just said, I can do hard things. Like, so I can leave this
Oh, I
house
love it.
and I can just go and do. And then the more you do, the more you learn. And you're like, okay, that wasn't so hard. But still, even to this day, having to go into a situation, having to like call an office, if I can send an email and use Google Translate, I'm going to, even
Yeah.
though most Germans learn English in school. And so, or because of the influence of Hollywood and things like that, there's a lot of signs around here that are in English. Not
Mm-hmm.
not because just because of how it's just so integrated now that it once you start to realize that, it gets a little bit easier. But then once we
Yeah.
started traveling, I think Athens was the first place we went to, like on an airplane after we moved. It was in February, right before COVID started. We were just starting to see people put masks on at the airport, but we weren't, that kind of like, you didn't know what it was. It was just
Mm-hmm.
something happening somewhere else. And but we went to Athens, and even though it was February, it was warm. We wore shorts, and then you go to the Parthenon, and the Acropolis is just this huge ruin that you've only read about in storybooks, and here it is before your eyes. Like, it didn't feel real. It felt as foreign as Zeus as a god, right?
Right.
Who we know isn't real and is from a storybook, but we also put things like the Parthenon in that same realm. But it's real, and these things existed, and to be able to see that just really cemented, like, this is cool. This is what we're here for, is to experience these things that most people only get to read about.
Definitely. Or maybe wait, 30, 40 years after they really wanted to do it and they're kind of in retirement. That's when they do the Europe thing. Like that kind of stuff is super interesting to me. Like, and you brought up COVID, and I wanted to ask you about that because you're talking about like just like crossing borders and not have to worry about that. And it does make me miss. There was once upon a time there was a situation where you like Canadians could go to the U.S. and Americans to Canada. Like there was the same thing. Like you didn't have to show a
Yeah, you
passport
didn't
at
have
one
to
point.
have a passport. Yeah.
Just driver's license. And for that reason, I think a lot of people like my age and maybe older like never really got one because like the only place they would ever really go is Canada and the US if you were kind of close to the border, and that was really it. And it's like, you just kind of describing the way Europe is, it's interesting because it seems so progressive, but it's actually like we were there before, we've kind of regressed from that. Which I don't know, like I don't even know how I feel about it, but when I just look at how freely you're able to go in Europe, it's like there is something nice about that it's just like maybe a little bit more unified, a little bit more just like, just come see and experience, like whether you're a tourist or like you're somebody who actually like lives there and you were born and raised, it kind of doesn't really matter. You're able to do all that. But where I guess I'm going with this is, I was thinking the whole time you're freely going from country to country, but it's been a pandemic basically the entire time you were there, as you just mentioned, like just kind of like just after.
Yep.
So how has that impacted like Italy? I think the world was watching Italy at one point in time, just like everybody seemed like there's like 3 videos that went around. So everybody assumes the entire country just all living in apartment buildings, singing songs to each other. Of course, that's how, right? Like that, we all know the video that we're talking about here. But yeah, like how has that been like in terms of being able to go out and about and stuff? Like, like how has that been?
So Germany took and you may even remember from the news, because they were kind of put on a pedestal very early on, because we had very low death rates, very low hospitalization rates. And a lot of that was because they acted very quickly. So we have been wearing masks indoors since April of 2019. There's never once been a time where we have not had to wear masks indoors since then. And they actually just 3 weeks ago now, I think they just bumped up the mask requirement. So now we have to wear an FFP2 mask or an N95 mask in stores. And so there's some other like give and take with that. It's not quite that direct, but they've been very rigid and very strict in their rules. And so we were, even though we've gone to 20 countries since we've been here, 8 months of that we were totally grounded. We could not leave the country because the borders were closed. And so that really impacted things. And then you are just kind of watching like these maps, I guess, of, you know, these little hot spots, and they're just kind of trickling and getting closer and closer to where you live. Germany's really great about data. It's the Robert, I'm going to say it wrong, but Koch, I think is the last, it's like KOCH Institute. And they've been so good about gathering data that the rest of the world has kind of used that as a benchmark. And that's been really great because we've had good resources to go and look and say, okay, well, here are the numbers in this place, and should we change our travel plans? Should we go here or here? I'm a type 1 diabetic, so we have to be careful with my health because it could be God forbid, deadly if I were to get COVID. And thank goodness we have not been, because we've been really good, I think. And some of that is just luck because we have been traveling, but we've been able to stay fairly safe, the two of us. But I have gotten an education in foreign travel for sure. I know my geography a lot better than I did because you have to look at the map constantly, and every single country has their own entrance requirements. So you have to look before you go somewhere. What are the requirements to get in? And then if you're coming from that area, what are the requirements to come back into Germany? So
what are examples of that? Like what kind of requirements do some countries do?
So to come back into Germany, anyone coming into Germany without a life or death reason to do so has to be vaccinated. So if you wanted to come to visit as a tourist, you have to have both your initial and second vaccination. And then if you wanted to, say, go eat at a restaurant, they have different levels in Germany. And I think our restaurants right now are what's called 2G+, which means either vaccinated or recovered and either a booster shot or a negative antigen test. So it's like double safe. And so a lot of that would be, if you want to go to France, you would have to register and do a passenger locator form and upload the copies of your vaccines in order to go. And then you have to show every time you want to go inside a restaurant or stay at a hotel. If you want to get on an airplane, you have to do the same. Some countries require a negative antigen test. I don't remember where it was we went, but we had to have within 48 hours of when we landed, we had to have a negative antigen test. But those are very easy to get in Germany and free, thankfully.
Free. There it is. Yeah.
Yeah. They actually required it. They've been moving toward a required vaccine. and they have not passed it yet. I think Austria is the only one that's passed it so far, that they're requiring their citizens to get vaccinated, but Germany has done just about everything else they can to make life very inconvenient for people that are unvaccinated. Like they can't go to restaurants right now. But
what's the reception of that? Because I feel like in North America, that maybe there's a different kind of like take on this, or maybe not different, because it's just varied. But I don't know, is there more of a unified front against COVID over there, or is it? Do you get a sense of like, do you have freedom convoys? I guess is what I'm asking.
No. So I can't necessarily speak in turn on that because I don't speak German, so I don't follow the German news. So I am in my own little world, and I have to like recognize but in my experience, like I've never seen a Karen at the grocery store because she doesn't want to put on a mask. Never once. Yeah. There's plenty of protests, certainly against the vaccine mandates. And I think that spans both sides, whether you're pro-vaccine or not. A lot of people are against a mandatory thing. So
I think that's well said. I honestly don't think anybody has really expressed it in that way, and I'm happy that you did, because I think you can be pro-vaccine and anti-vaccine mandate. Like I think I think there's more interesting kind of conversations to be had there than maybe people might give it immediate thought, because people think you're against vaccine mandate, that means you're against the vaccine. It's like, that's not necessarily what people are saying. I think that's interesting.
Yeah. And it's of course such a nuanced discussion because of how being vaccinated may protect other people that can't be vaccinated, things like that. But in the end, I think that a lot of people here support the freedom of choice for something like that, for your own personal medical decision. So there's definitely been protests. I know that there's, of course, COVID fatigue, where people are getting tired of wearing masks and things like that. But for the most part, yes, everyone was super. So I don't know if this is like too political or whatever, but one of my favorite quotes with all of this COVID stuff is that the worst mistake they made was telling Americans that wearing masks was to benefit other people.
Yeah.
Wearing a mask was to benefit you, no one would have had an issue. And I think that you see that in cultures like Japan and in Europe, where everyone's happy to do it to help because it's for the greater good. It's not
you live in service of others, for sure.
Yeah. And so there's definitely a lot more of that here than I've experienced going back, or just like, seeing these meltdowns at Costco from these like old white women. So I haven't seen that.
Maybe they just need Sundays. Maybe things just, because I remember talking to Josh last time, like things are closed on Sunday. Like it just changes the pace. Like maybe we just need a break, like we just need to slow down a little bit over here. Sunday is family day. Yeah.
And I think that really has been the biggest cultural adjustment for us, because before Sundays we'd go to church, we'd go to Costco, we'd go to the grocery store, and then we'd like go home and watch football, right? Like the American life. And now we have to find time to do our errands that on other days, and that frees up Sunday to just relax and like kind of gather yourself for the rest of the week. And it's a huge adjustment. Like restaurants are still open, museums are open, cultural center, movie theaters, things like that are still open, but you can't do any errands. You can't go to the hardware store. You can't go to the grocery store. And that really does kind of shift the way that you do things. Now, it makes things a little bit more complicated because on Monday evening after I've worked all day, I don't want to go to the grocery store.
Yeah.
But I've also had all of Sunday to relax. We went and hiked our 8 miles today, and, we're going to order food and we're just going to be relaxed. And so that part's really nice. But that is a huge, coming from the land of 24/7, going to like 12/6 or whatever, because stores close at like 6 or 7 o'clock here as well. So there's no 24-hour grocery store that I'm aware of other than like a gas station.
Sure. Yeah, no, we're definitely getting a bit of a sense of that. I ordered something from Best Buy and I planned on running over to pick it up the other night, and looked online and they're like, it's closed. It's 7 o'clock. And I'm like, what the heck? And I kind of got a little angry about it. Like I was not expecting this, but COVID is kind of like forced us back probably like 25 years, because that definitely was the case before, until like this person realized that you can do more business if you're open longer. And then the next person was like, well, if they're doing it, then we're doing it. And then everything is lost.
Up with the Joneses.
But the problem is, as soon as you just said we did our 8 mile hike today, I went, in my head, I heard that and I went, oh yeah, it's Sunday today. Like, I don't even know what day it is most times.
Yep.
Like, that's how just, rat race the whole thing is because
Yeah.
you wake up somewhere and you're like, I literally don't even know what day it is. So to have that just like cultural reset, I would say it's kind of the same idea that some people are going for like with a 4-day work week. It's just like that extra day. It will put extra pressure on those 4 days is trying to take a 5-day work week and smashing that into a 4-day kind of thing. But there's gotta be a benefit to it. Like this is what I mean when we were talking about at the start, like there's empowerment in just kind of going, there's another way, and like actually going after it and discovering it. I think that's it. We're moving to Germany. Like I want to get back to, you had mentioned that the commonality between your family and Josh's family was like that there's sort of like a military kind of connection as well. And that maybe created a situation where both of you were pretty adaptable and kind of knew what that nomadic kind of lifestyle was like. I'm curious, like, is that kind of the key connecting point when you guys first kind of met, when you realized like, oh yeah, we both have this in common, or what was it that kind of first got you guys going when you met each other?
So I don't know that I've always been like kind of wanting to travel and see and do. But I don't know that that's what Josh's experience was growing up with, it was just him and his mom. His sister's quite a bit older, so she moved out of the house pretty early on. So they kind of stayed put after his dad retired and went into federal service. But that is actually what brought us together, is that we both work together. So I was in Portland and he was in Seattle, but we entered into this like same intern program together, and that's how we got to know each other and be friends. And so that was really the commonality. But then we quickly realized that we had to make that like the last thing that we had in common, because no one wants to talk about work all the time.
Let's talk about that more.
I'm so much the type that like I like to talk things through, and I can hyper focus. I can be a workaholic. And Josh is the type of person that's just like, I'm done. It's 3:00 in the afternoon. I don't have to think about this until I clock back in.
Yeah.
And so it was a good balance of trying to coordinate that. And we had this rule. So we were working in Auburn, but living in Bremerton. So we had to cross the Tacoma Narrows Bridge. It was like a 45-minute commute. We had this rule that anytime we were on this side of the bridge, like home side, we didn't talk about work. And anytime we were on the other side of the bridge, it was okay to talk about work. And that was like a really good boundary for both
literal
of us.
boundaries. Yeah,
because I needed to talk about it. I needed to get it off my chest, but he also needed to let it go and just, let go and let God until he had to come back to work the next day, especially later on when we became just so, it was just a really toxic workplace. So that was a big commonality. And then actually video games became like a thing that kept us together, because we were in a long distance relationship for the first year. And so when he first came to visit me in Portland, he brought an Xbox with him, and he's like, this is yours now, and we're going to play. So it was a 360. And I always loved playing video games when I was a kid. Like, I remember when I was in college, I saved my money up and bought a Wii, and it was my or not a Wii, a GameCube. I'm not that young. A GameCube. And we got to, my friends, my roommates and stuff, we'd always play GameCube and stuff. So I was familiar with video games, but nothing like what he played. And so we played Castle Crashers.
That's the best.
And it was so great. I love giraffes. I have a big giraffe tattooed on my forearm, and Josh has a Nintendo tattoo, and he got the little Castle Crashers giraffe on as part of his.
Oh, I love it.
Not technically Nintendo, as part of his tattoo to kind of like represent that time in our lives. But yeah, so we would just like put on headphones, and it would allow us to talk and have that connection, even though we were hours apart. And, his roommates would play with us too. And then we played, I don't even remember it, but I remember it was super fun. The 1 versus 100, when that was a thing.
That game is awesome.
That was so much fun. So we'd like both get on at whatever, like 6:00 at night every time it was on, and we'd play. And so that was like really something that brought us together, which was really cool, because we could sit and do this thing that it didn't require skill or anything. Like Castle Crashers, I could just sit and mash buttons and
button mash for sure.
And then him and his roommates could go like kill the bad guys, and I would just like eat the stuff that was around or whatever. And occasionally be yelled at because I needed to fight more if I was going to actually pick up all of the good stuff. But
That's awesome though. Like it's so fun. There's so many different kind of stories like that kind of around the world. Usually what I hear is like, we played World of Warcraft together for 1,000 hours or something like that. And it's just like, there's this other end of the spectrum that's just like, it's just a thing. It's like, you know, you can, it's almost like just playing like board games, but you're not at the same table anymore. You're able to it's a reason to come together and chat.
Yeah, it's just something to do together that you guys can talk about, and you don't have to totally focus on the game, but you're also not like staring at your ceiling talking on the phone like you're in high school.
Holy crap, flashbacks. Oh my gosh,
that's
amazing.
I know. Now they text, right?
Oh man. I got my first FaceTime in a long time yesterday. I was out skiing with my son, and good friend Johnathan Brown hits me up with a FaceTime. I'm like, man, this is good. I haven't like seen somebody's face on this thing in a while. Even though I do this, it's like, right. I don't know, for whatever reason, the FaceTime was very special. But how did you feel about like just like him just dropping off? And it's not like you were like asking, were you like dropping hints or something like, oh, I'd really like an Xbox or something? Like he just shows up and goes like, here, like that wasn't imposing to you, or like, I like video games, therefore you will have this, and this is going to be what we do.
No, I think it was more like, that's really expensive.
Exactly.
But it wasn't like imposing at all. And I think some of it, and this was almost 13 years ago now, so I don't remember all of the details, but I think it was some of it was also like, I'm going to be here this weekend, so I want something to play as well. For sure. So but it wasn't ever like, this is my Xbox and I'm leaving it here. It was, here, I got you this, and we're going to play it together. But it wasn't like forceful or anything like that. It was, I think I had a Wii, I think too. I think I had it at that point with me as well to play. So I was still playing video games, just casual, like a lot of Lego and and things
and literally that's been my year so far, is Lego games and Guitar Hero. My kids recently, I don't even know how it came up, they said something that like triggered my brain, like, well, I'm busting out Guitar Hero and Rock Band here, so we're playing that, and it's the best. And I think the first game I completed this year was Lego Star Wars, so I am all about that. I love those Lego games. What about now? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, we were just talking, I think yesterday, about Guitar Hero and the balance between, there's like the point where you start drinking and you get better, and then there's just like the point of no return, and you just have to walk away because you're done.
It's the true rock star experience. Like you play a little better, you have a couple drinks, and then you're the
nice
story.
Relaxed, you're not too worried about it. Yep, hitting all the buttons, and then you're just missing everything.
That was literally my thought as I was playing with my kids. I'm like, I'm way more sober than I was the last time I played this game. And that is to say completely sober, not even just a little sip of daddy's grandpa's cough syrup over here. That's so funny. So yeah, like what are you playing? Are you playing anything now? And also like Josh has got this backtrackers thing that he's leading up with our community. He's kind of into that. Has he roped you into catching up with some of the games that the community is playing at all?
He talks to me about it, and like I like to ask and find out where things are. But he's really good about just telling me about the games, and I think that helps too, so he can kind of talk through it before everyone meets and kind of bounce ideas off of it and stuff. But I have a home-based business is what they call it, but I make crafts, and I'm super busy, so I haven't had a lot of time to play. But like every time we travel, I am obsessed with Picross. And this last time I actually started playing color Picross, which is just mind-blowingly amazing. I didn't even know it was available, and now I'm learning to play it in a whole different way. But I really like puzzle games. And then I fell off of it really hard, but was absolutely obsessed with Animal Crossing when it came out. I got my own Switch so I could play, and really like that. And then Josh and I actually, we finished It Takes Two.
Yes, I haven't even played that yet. Goodness gracious. Oh my
gosh, it's amazing.
Is it?
I loved it. And so when we go hiking, we listen to video game podcasts, and that's like my exposure to all of the different games because I don't play them myself.
Right.
But listening to everyone talking about it, everything people said was true. Like every single different level is a different mechanic, and it's not hard as a casual gamer. I could figure it out. And I don't know if I just got lucky because I picked the girl and some of the stuff she had to do was easier, or if it's just not that difficult. I'm not sure, but there's not a lot of aiming, and I'm really, really bad at like shooting games and aiming and camera control and stuff that just, it's no good. So,
but you have a sign on your wall somewhere that says you can do hard things. That's like my big takeaway from today, and it really resonated with me because I was literally saying that to my son yesterday. We took him skiing, and I told him about like the T-bar. Do you know what a T-bar is when you go up the hill, and it's kind of like a thing that sits on your butt and pulls you up? Yeah. It kind of freaked him out a little bit. Like he didn't even know what it was, and he says that sounds really hard. And this has been a thing that he's been saying a lot. And the notion of you can do hard things. Yeah. I love that. Like just having that, like a collection of experiences you have in your back pocket. Like I've done this before, or I've done something that I hadn't done before in the past. I think that is really, really powerful, but that's a bit of an aside. How are you guys listening to video game podcasts on your hikes? Is it like a little speaker you've got going on, or like wireless earbuds? I'm curious about that. I was expecting that.
Yes, the Apple AirPods, and then we just each share one. Yeah. So it works out really well.
Sharing music. I remember like back in the day, like going on the bus and sharing an earbud with a friend. Oh yeah. You're like right next to each other. You'd have to like flip it around. You're like, how do we do this one? Which is the right one for you? Like that takes me back quite a bit, actually. It reminds me a lot of even just the way you guys are reminds me a lot of my wife and I, actually, where I'm kind of the obsessive one, but we're kind of flipped it in other ways. I think you and I are very similar in like the maybe overthinking, over planning, wanting to make sure like everything is plotted out. Like that's definitely me. But my wife also has like a bit of a crafting business as well on top of her photography. Like she's kind of got like that side of things. So talk to me about that a little bit. Like where did that start? Was it a cricket that was the gateway drug as it tends to be?
So my mom is super artistic and crafty, and she like makes greeting cards and all of this stuff. So it's always been around me as a kid. And so it's something I've always enjoyed. And then, she actually gave me one of her crickets many, many years ago because she was upgrading and I just started to play.
Classic.
And I'm super science-based as far as like an engineer mind. I like to take things apart. I like to look at things. So I always like to say that I'm not good at creating, but I'm really good at reproducing. So,
me too. I say the same thing. So good. Blank page, I'm screwed. But
yeah, exactly. But if I can look at it, I can do, like, people will send me pictures of things that they see online, and I can make it perfectly just by looking at it and figuring it out. That's kind of reverse engineering it. But yeah, just a blank page, forget it. I'm not very good at that.
I literally just have like squiggles. I've got like my iPad with its pencil. I'm like, I'm gonna do stuff with this, and I get a blank page. I'm like, I think I'm signing my name. I think that's what I'm doing with this thing. Exactly. So stupid.
I have no idea.
I couldn't be more lost with stuff like that. I see other people like just do little doodle, and it's like this beautiful thing. Like some people get it like tattooed to their body. I'm like, I'm kind of wowed with my squiggles, and it's smooth to touch. I guess that's kind of where I'm at. I love it.
And that's hard too, because then I have the whole like imposter syndrome aspect of it too, because I don't feel like I'm actually creating anything. I'm just making things. But it works well as a business because a lot of times other people don't have that creative bone either. They just see something and that's what they want.
Yes.
And so being here in Europe, where Etsy is still a thing, but the kind of American approach to home decor is a lot different than the German or European approach. There's no like farmhouse chic in Germany. So that's good because I can cater to the American tastes and be able to help with that aspect of it. And then there's no crazy like long shipping delays or anything like that. People can just, I do all of my stuff as local pickup. So that, and everyone can just come and get things, and then I don't have to deal with shipping either. But yeah, I do a lot of wood signs and anything I can cut with my Cricut, t-shirts and vinyl designs, and then the sparkly glitter cups that are really popular right now. And then because I like to kind of reverse engineer things and stuff, I do a lot of tutorials. I've got a little YouTube and then like TikTok and things like that where I get to do tutorials for things.
Send me the link. Send me the stuff because I want to make sure people can check that stuff. I want to look at it as well. Like send me all your stuff like that. And
sure.
I have to have my wife has to have a look at this as well. Like it just loves it. And I have to, like, when I think about like Christmas and birthdays, it's like vinyl stuff, like it's new Cricut tools, it's whatever else. Like it makes it really nice as a spouse to have somebody who's into this sort of thing. Cause it's like the gift buying is so easy. It's like there's never an end to it. You know, there's so much, which is maybe a little bit overwhelming. There's maybe that side of it, but at the same time, you go like, there's never a doubt on like
go wrong. Yeah,
really, yeah. And she added on like 3D printing to it, so like I'm getting all these sorts of different colors for the whatever it's called, the spools of stuff. Filament, that's the word. Yeah. So, how is your like crafting space? Do you have like a dedicated kind of like room to it? Like is it a nightmare or you have it actually kind of organized?
Yes.
Yeah, nervous laughter ensues.
So we got lucky and we have a 4-bedroom house. And so and it's Germany, so it's 3 stories. And so the second floor, Josh has his office and then our bedroom. And then the third story it's like a vaulted ceiling. So it's a big room, but only you can have to duck down for part of it. And so I have my office in there, which is now expanded into the spare bedroom because the borders have been closed for the 2 years that we've lived here, more or less. So we haven't had anyone come to visit. So we don't need a spare bedroom. Oh. So now that and as my business has grown and it's still like super little and modest, but it's a lot bigger than we thought originally. So here you have to have approval to be able, like I'm a German registered business, but then I also have to have approval through the Army garrison to also operate a business. It's really weird, but
that makes sense. So, yeah.
Yeah. So because of that like legitimized it. But unless I did that, I couldn't just sell stuff for fun. So there's no happy medium. It's either you're a legitimate business, and I guess technically, by the law, that's how all hobby crafters, once you make over like $600, I think in the US, you have to claim it as a business.
Right.
And so it's grown in that aspect, and so have the things that I've wanted to do because I like to learn and play. So I have a heat press and I have like 5 different printers and I have a laser cutter and I have a 3D printer, but it's still in the box because I don't have time to figure it out. I keep telling Josh, like, you need to figure out how to do this for me.
It's tough. Like, it's not you plug it in and just hit print. Like, it's definitely like Chelsea, my wife, she spent a lot of time just figuring out like why a bunch of prints were failing, like even just test prints. You'd almost like there's like chess pieces she was trying to print. I think that was like one of the first test things, and just like it kept ruining it. And she had one was a I think a resin printer, and the other one was like the spools. And the filament one is definitely working out better for her. The other one, good, not so much. Yeah.
You just see these videos of people that have gone like to work because they started a 24-hour print and they come back and there's just this mountain of expensive filament everywhere. I'm
Seriously.
like, I don't want to do that.
Yeah, scary. And that is it. Yeah, you look at the print time. It's like, this is a day. Like, you kind of hit go and like hope for the best.
Yeah.
So, but once now, like, she's kind of got it down now. I think she kind of understands like some tricks of the trade, like the leveling, and there's like a stickiness to the surface that you're printing on. Like, it's a whole thing. And I love that both you guys kind of have something like that. They're related, but I think not. But it's something that you can definitely like distract yourself from work and learn about it and kind of obsess about it as well. Like, maybe there's that piece of it. Like, you can really like go down a rabbit hole with both of these things.
Yes.
And that resonates with me big time because it is a very similar situation for my wife and I. When the kids go to bed or when we're done work or whatever, it's like we both have things that we can do together, but we also have something that we can just like go pour ourselves into for a number of hours, and just kind of have that alone time for sure.
Yeah, I think it's so important to have a good balance, but have both, because you do need to have that connection, but you also need that space. Everyone needs something that's just theirs, that they do, and that isn't encumbered by someone else, that can just be, and I don't know, like, I like things a particular way for certain things. I'm a disaster. Like my craft room, like what you're saying, it's a total disaster. Like, I'm super organized when I have
organized chaos.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
It was growing up. My room would be a mess, and I would just look at my mom and say, "Ask me where something is, and I will show you in 10
There it
seconds." Like, I
is.
know where it is. It's just absolute chaos.
Just nobody else does.
Exactly.
Yeah, I get it.
Close the door. Don't look at it.
This makes a lot of sense to me. Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
So being able to have things a particular way that I want them when the rest of my life is shared with someone else, and I have to be considerate of the way that we both need to do things, that's nice. I can have my little mess. So Josh is very very clean and organized and minimal, and I'm very just like, the big joke is that I leave my napkins everywhere because maybe I'll need to use it and I just don't want to get rid of it yet. And he's like one and done and move on because he wants the cleanliness of it. So I've got like pictures that are just hilarious because there's his side of the living room that is very nice, and mine looks like, something blew up, and then his side of the bed and my side of the bed, my side of the bedroom. It's just, everything is like that. And so it's good to have the difference of how, the balance, I guess, of knowing that we do have community space that's going to meet both of our needs, and then I can just go and explode upstairs.
Heck yes. Oh man, no, I get it. I 100% is very, very similar, and I actually had very little doubt that would be the case. That's so funny. Hey, look, I can't believe it's like already just an hour. Like, I've had an absolute blast chatting with you. Yeah, let me know, is there an easy way to kind of like verbally share like where people can find the stuff that you're doing online, the Etsy stores and everything?
So on everything, I'm the Hoppy Doxie. So and then Hoppy with an O, Hoppy, and then Doxie. So Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, everything is just the Hoppy Doxie, which makes it pretty easy.
Very smart. Well, yeah, it's I can't imagine there's too many Hoppy Doxies out there. So you've landed on some. What is that? Well, I have to ask. What's a Doxie? What's a Hoppy Doxie?
So the name started a long time ago when my father-in-law got us a brew your own beer kit at home, or like a home brew kit, and we made it, and we were trying to figure out what we would call this beer so I could like make labels and stuff. And we have our dog Kiki is a Doxie, a Dachshund, and she likes to sit like a prairie dog on her back legs, where she's sort of sitting up like a little muskrat or something. Yeah. And so Josh came up with that, like the Hoppy of beer.
I love it.
Doxie. And then once I started my business, he's like, well, just use that. And so that it's super unique, and it was easy to come up with, or I guess easy to adapt to something that was unique and fun and kind of meets the style. Like, my dog is the center of my life, and so it just works out really well for that. So yeah, I
love it. That's super cute. Yeah, well, meanwhile, the rest of us are adopting World of Warcraft or Warcraft names. I think because I think Delroy is a World of Warcraft thing. I think I've got to talk to Josh about that at some point.
It's actually, I'm gonna give you a secret. I don't know where it started, but it's his middle name.
Oh, snap. Is it really? Okay. Oh, I was thinking there's also another friend in the community, Andrew. He goes by Eldorn. I think that's one too. There's a few others, but
yeah, okay. I don't know when he started it, but it's a family name. Yeah. And it's his middle name, and yeah, it's his, his gamer tag for everything and all of that. So
Hoppy Doxie is where everybody finds all the things. Bree, thank you so much for carving out time after, goodness, you must be exhausted after an 8-mile hike. Goodness gracious. It's not a quick thing. So,
it's fun.
And we're on opposite ends of the world, so it's morning for me. Yes. I think we're gonna go skiing today. So I'll get my Sunday kind of going here. So yeah, thanks so much for hanging out with me today.
Absolutely, this was fun.
Couple different We the GamerCast in a row, you guys. I hope that you enjoyed that conversation. I'm telling you, since I recorded the intro to this to now, you were listening to me talk to the Hoppy Doxie, but I was actually talking to Andros from Nintendo Pals. I was recording a podcast, just wrapped up with him. That will be on next week's show, so stay tuned, subscribe, do all the things, make sure that you get next week's episode. And I'm excited about that. Man, all the links in the show notes for Hoppy Doxie, though. Go click on all the things. I've already snuck a peek over at that Facebook page. And I appreciate what the show is becoming and what it will continue to become, and that you guys are here. Gaming for Guru continues on. $1,200 raised for Bobby, in Bobby's memory, I should say. And I'm excited to get my stream on tomorrow. Play some games with you guys. Or having had played games with you. Because that's how time works. Man, I skipped an opportunity at the beginning of the show to talk about the Batman. Watch the Batman with the Tony Baker from The Quest for Pixels. And I love the movie. I don't care if anybody doesn't like it. I loved it. I absolutely adored it. So I just wanted to say that. And that's it. The clip that is going to close out the show is from If We Ran Nintendo. Bobby and I, we used to do a show called If We Ran Nintendo. And instead of doing the old closer that we used to do, we're going to close out the show with a little clip. And actually what I think I might do as almost like a bit of a easy way to do this is I always enjoyed the way we closed out the shows. So here's a little treat for you guys. At a certain point, I discovered that mentioning Kirby would cause Bobby to just shut the show down. So I think there's a little bit of that. Here, Bobby always had his catchphrase, "Peace out, Preston," and I always loved that. It became a bit of a signature for Bobby. And so you get a bit of a taste of that. And that's how we're going to close out the show, We the GamerCast. If you guys have listened to anything that Bobby and I have done, or anything Bobby has done, and you want to have a clip featured at the end of the show, like, I feel like this is a really cool thing that we're going to have here. Instead of just the silly heavy rain thing, that's gone. I'd love to say, like, you know, Josh Stapleton submitted this clip, and this is what it is, and kind of introduce that, and actually be a thing that you might even want to stick around for. So here's a very cool clip. Thank you guys for listening to the episode. Make sure you stick around for next week. And I appreciate every single dang one of you. Okay, bye-bye. I think that would be absolutely huge. That is the official. That's my final answer, Bobby.
Yeah, I say Insomniac is the company. Absolutely. So that is all.
Oh,
Thank
okay.
you guys for... You say it like that?
I don't know. That's it?
You're just like, okay.
All right.
That is all. Thank you guys for listening to another episode If We Ran Nintendo. You could
give Insomniac Kirby. Sorry to interrupt. Give him Kirby. I need to throw in my Kirby mention.
You know what? Now now we definitely are going. You can follow Sean Capri over on Twitter. Sean like Connery, Capri like the pants. You can follow me over on Twitter at Nintendo Gurus. That is all. Peace out, Preston.
I accidentally adopted your sign off on the last Xbox Drive, Bobby. It was so embarrassing. And then Luke jumped right in. I said that is all, and then Luke had a nice pregnant pause and he said, "Peace out, Preston." That was it. Yeah, he did.